Hi everyone, it's Rachel here. Today I decided to split up my December wrap-up into two videos because as of December 18th, I've already read 5 books for the month and I haven't even started Christmas holidays, so I know I'm going to read a ton more before the month is over. And rather than cram it all into one video or make it super long, I decided to split it up. So I'm going to tell you about the first 5 books I read in the month of December. Now the first book I read was Faithful Place by Tana, and the general synopsis of this book is about a detective that when he was around 18 years old, he was in love with this girl and they made a decision to run away from their families and start a life together. And on the day they decided to do this, at midnight when he was supposed to meet her, she never showed and she just left with a note and that was it. She was gone. And years later, what happened is that her suitcase was found in the place that they were leaving from, making it seem as if she never left at all. And so this detective is called in because he is a person of interest and was one of the last people to have seen her. And it's him trying to figure out what happened. And of course he's going back to his hometown and meeting his estranged family. I was really excited to pick this one up because, you know, I love the first 2 books in Tana French's Dublin Murder series, but this one did disappoint me. I just wasn't as interested or invested in this one. I just never quite cared enough. I thought the premise sounded amazing, but the execution just felt dry and it just felt really slow paced. I just can't recommend this one as much as the other 2. I'm still glad I read it because I think Tana French has serious favorite author potential, but this one was a little bit of a miss for me. Regardless, I'm still planning on continuing on with her series and hope to read Broken Harbor early next year. After that, I listened to the audiobook of Pretty Girl 13 by Liz Coley, and this was recommended by Amanda at her channel, Amanda in PA, and if you haven't checked out her channel, I really encourage you to. She reads a lot of like underhyped mysteries and thrillers, both adult and young adult. This particular one is a young adult suspense story that the premise, I was immediately sold when she told the premise. And basically there's a young 13-year-old girl who, it's told from her perspective, and she remembers leaving her camp bunk when she was out camping and went outside, and then the next thing she remembered, she was walking to her house and walked in to find her parents surprised to see her because apparently she was missing for 3 years and is now 16. And of those 3 years, she has no memories of what happened. And the book starts there and it just keeps going. There's so many good developments in this book. It's part suspense and I'd almost call it part kind of contemporary because it deals a lot with the actual issues a young person would be going through thrown into the situation. Keep in mind that there is kind of mild trigger warnings with a book like this, that it really delves into what might have happened to a young girl who has been kidnapped. And this is a book that really lives up to the label of psychological suspense because she actually spends a lot of the book in her own head, working with a psychiatrist, trying to figure out what happened to those memories and piecing things back together. And the way the author does this is so compelling. I was really pulled into the story. It was just a solid YA, and I definitely think you don't have to be a young adult to enjoy this one because it just has some wide audience appeal. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the audiobook though, because while I enjoyed it, the narrator had a really babyish voice, which kind of fit because the narrator herself still thought of herself as a 13-year-old, but it did get a little bit grating at times, so keep that in mind. But yeah, really recommend that one. It was a lot of fun. Definitely, if you enjoy kind of a twisty, you know, story with an unreliable narrator, it's definitely one to pick up. So my favorite book of the month so far has to be The Grownup by Gillian Flynn. You know me, I'm a huge fan of her as an author, and this book blew my expectations away. I went in a little bit cautious because I heard some mixed reviews, and also I'm not a huge fan of kind of short stories, novellas, but I'm such a fan of her as an author and it completely lived up to what I wanted it to be. And just tell you a really brief synopsis because the book itself is only like 62 pages, so I don't want to give up too much of the plot, but it's about a young woman who works in a shop where in the front of the shop they tell fortunes and in the back they do other activities with their clients, let's say, and she gets involved with a woman who thinks her house is haunted. And the story goes from there. I really don't want to say more. It's short enough that just, if you enjoy Gillian Flynn, you have to pick it up. And yeah, it was twisted. The characters were dark and manipulative and just, oh, I love everything that she does. I'm just always so impressed by her, and this was completely worth it. Even though it was only 62 pages long, it is a book I would like to buy just because I'm trying to buy everything that she's done, and I just thought the story was fantastic. So absolutely recommend that one. After that, I finished Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healey, and this book is about an older woman with, I believe it's dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's told from her perspective, and it's very well done in what it's trying to do, that it shows the fragmented mind of an elderly person losing their memory. As the reader, you don't always know what's going on, and because you're told from her limited perspective, you know you're getting this unreliable narrator, which makes the story really interesting right off the bat. But unfortunately, I read this really slowly because it was kind of the book I was reading over my lunch hours at work. So that might have contributed to it, but I really felt it started to drag towards the last 2/3 of this book. I think a lot of other people love this book. I definitely recommend it if it's the kind of book you think you'll like. It just wasn't quite my style. I admit I enjoy a book with a little bit more narrative drive, a little bit more plot. It's just my preference. So it wasn't really a home run for me. I gave it about 3 stars. And the last book I have to show you today is I Know How She Does It by Laura Vanderkam. How Successful Women Make the Most of Their Time. And this author I've read before. She also wrote 168 Hours in a Week, which is all about time management. She's a bit of a time management guru who tracks people's time over the course of a week and then turns around and gives them advice how to maximize their lives, whether it be spending more time with their families or making more time for themselves or organizing their work in a really interesting way. I found this book really fascinating. It basically chronicles the time schedules of very wealthy, successful women, primarily women with families. And while this isn't necessarily me, I definitely thought it was interesting kind of get a glimpse into their lives. And this book is definitely targeted towards people who have a lot more flexibility in their work, but regardless, you can definitely get some good ideas how to fit more time for different activities you want. And just like I said, it was kind of interesting to kind of creep on other people. So enjoyed this book, gave it about I think 3.5 stars. So that is everything I've read so far in December, but again, I expect I'll be reading probably another 5 or so books before the month is done, so I'll be back with another wrap up in early January. Please let me know down below what is the best book you've read in December so far. Thanks for watching, talk to you again soon.